What is up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja. Last week I kind of closed the book on 2022 by giving a tier ranking of all the games that I played. This week I want to turn the page to 2023 by talking about my top 5 most anticipated games of the year. Without further ado, let's rock. So a quick disclaimer, video games are notorious for getting delayed, sometimes at the very last minute. So obviously the release dates I'm about to give you are subject to change. That being said, I'd love to hear your most anticipated game of 2023 in the comments below. I think that even if a portion of the games I'm about to talk about and the games that I couldn't fit on this list, plus throw in the games that always fly under the radar, come out in 2023, I think we're in for a phenomenal year of gaming. That being said, let's go ahead and get to my number 5. My number 5, as you can see, is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which is currently slated to come out on May 26th for Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. And you should already be able to tell that I think it's going to be a killer year of gaming if I'm starting off with an Arkham game, albeit an Arkham game where you can't play as Batman. However, if Rocksteady can bring the combat system that works so well in the Arkham series to the Suicide Squad, it's going to make for a really fun game to play. That being said, I am a little bit nervous about the story. I feel like games where you can play as multiple characters tend to play it safe with the narrative because they can't craft a story around a particular character. That being said, as I mentioned in my trailer reaction video recently, I am excited that this game seems to have a little bit more levity to it, which humor is something that was seriously lacking in the Arkham games. So I'm definitely excited about that. Throw in the fact that this is possibly Kevin Conroy's last performance as Batman has me really hyped for this game. So my 4th most anticipated game of the year is coincidentally the Resident Evil 4 remake, which is currently scheduled for a March 24 release on Series X and S, PlayStation 4 and 5, and PC. And as I said with Suicide Squad, if I'm putting a remake of Resident Evil 4 at number 4, you know that I feel very strongly about the 3 other games on this list, because Resident Evil 4 is widely regarded as the best Resident Evil game ever made in a franchise that I absolutely adore. I personally prefer Resident Evil Village and the Resident Evil 2 remake, but I understand that Resident Evil 4 is still a phenomenal game as well. I do a weekly podcast, The Nerd You're Looking For, and my co-host, this is his favorite game of all time. I will say, out of the 3 most recent Resident Evil remakes, I think that Resident Evil 4 needed the remake the least. There are some outdated things in the game. I am not a fan of escort missions, and obviously a big chunk of this game is just a long escort mission. So I'm hoping that they kind of update some of that stuff. And I'm not a fan of some of the dialogue between Leon and Ashley. Some of it is pretty cringe, especially towards the end. So hopefully they clean up some of that as well. And finally, I wasn't super excited that I read that they're bringing back the island. I understand why they're doing it, because this seems like a pretty faithful remake. Also, it's such a big part of the original game that they couldn't keep it out entirely. It just isn't my cup of tea. I know there are fans of the island, but I wasn't a huge fan. So I was kind of looking forward to something a little bit different, but it makes sense that it's in this remake as well. Despite that, I am very, very excited for this game. Everything I've seen so far looks really cool. So moving right along to number 3, we have Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is the only game on this list that I wouldn't be heartbroken if it got pushed back, because it's currently scheduled for a March 17th release, which is a week prior to the Resident Evil 4 remake that we just talked about. Jedi Survivor will be released on Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. And of course, it is a sequel to the best Star Wars game we've gotten in years, Jedi Fallen Order. But that game was far from a perfect game. It felt like they didn't know exactly what they wanted to do with that game, because there were stretches where it felt like a Tomb Raider game, especially at the beginning with those annoying puzzles. And then there were small stretches later in the game where it felt kind of like a Sonic game, which I thought was weird. But I will say that the Souls-like combat system worked really well within the Star Wars universe. I also really enjoyed the boss battles. The story was fantastic. I thought really the last third, especially the last 45 minutes of the game, were phenomenal. And of all the sequels I'm going to talk about on this list, I feel like despite starting from a really good place, Jedi Survivor has the most room for improvement, which gets me really hyped for this game. So moving right along to my number 2, which shouldn't be a shock if you know me personally, and that is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. And I promise the numbering thing is just a coincidence, but Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is the only game on my list that does not have an exact release date as of recording. Right now, it is slated for fall 2023. And it is only going to be released on PlayStation 5, which I think is a little strange considering the original game was, of course, released on PS4 because that's what was available at the time. But when the PS5 was released, the original game was remastered for it. And the Miles Morales expansion / sequel was released on both PS4 and 5. So it is a little odd to me that they're only going to release the sequel on PS5. But I guess it makes sense. You kind of have to draw a line somewhere with these next gen consoles. And I absolutely adore the original game. I talked about the Arkham games earlier, especially the combat system, and I love that combat system. And they basically took that Arkham combat system and brought it to a Spider-Man game with the original game, and I thought it worked so well. I adore Peter Parker in Spider-Man. It is my favorite character of all time. Not just my favorite comic book character, but my favorite character overall of all time. If it wasn't for Spider-Man and TMNT, I probably wouldn't be the nerd I am today. And the original game just nailed everything I loved about Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I streamed the original game when it came out, and I literally, by the time I got to the end of it, there's a heartbreaking scene that I literally almost cried on stream. That's how much those characters mean to me. And it just, again, checked every box that I wanted from a Spider-Man game. So this is one of the few games on this list where I don't need to see any promo material whatsoever. I'm going to be playing this game day one. I'm super psyched. And honestly, in most years, this would be my number 1 for sure. Which of course is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is currently slated for a May 12th release, and of course will be exclusive to the Nintendo Switch. I don't know if there's any more I can say that hasn't already been said by myself or many others about the Breath of the Wild. It is one of the best video games of all time. I was so excited this past Christmas because my nephew got Breath of the Wild, and I was so excited for him. He is finally starting to get to the age where he can start playing more mature games, and this was kind of his first big one, and I am super psyched for him to check it out. Because like I said, it is one of the best video games of all time. My only tiny complaint, and what I'm really curious to see that they build upon in Tears of the Kingdom, is yes, the open world is huge and there is a lot to do, but I did find myself traveling a lot. There is a lot of empty space in the open world that I definitely think that they could fill in Tears of the Kingdom. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that. I definitely am psyched for some of the promo material that we've seen, especially Link in the sky, I think is a really interesting idea. So again, not much more I can say about this game just because I am super excited and Breath of the Wild is so good. I can't imagine that I'm going to play this game and be, I don't want to say disappointed because I guess it is possible that I'll be disappointed because I do expect it to be great, but I can't imagine playing this game and thinking, wow, that was a bad game. It's almost like God of War Ragnarok, that as long as you give me at least 80% of the original game, I'm gonna have a great time playing it. Well, there you have it, folks. Those are my top 5 most anticipated games of 2023. Like I said earlier, I think it's going to be a phenomenal year of gaming. When I thought of this video, I actually made an initial list of like 12 games and I had to whittle it down to top 5. And if only a portion of those games come out this year, I think we're in for a really, really fun year. So of course, as I mentioned earlier, I'd love to hear your most anticipated game in the comments below. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that like button, as the kids say. Consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, definitely ding that bell. That way you get notified anytime I post a video. As I mentioned in an earlier video, I did make a New Year's resolution to prioritize this channel, so I will be posting a lot of content this year. If you don't want to miss it, definitely hit subscribe, ding that bell. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy. And we were just talking, and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?